Hi everyone, I just wanted to tell you about the crazy week I've had. Okay, so on Monday, or was it Tuesday? Well, anyway, the beginning of this week, my husband's at work and he calls me and he says that he's, been having chest pains and shortness of breath and that he's going to go to the hospital. He's going to take off of work and go to the hospital. And I was like, well, there must be something wrong because he never takes off work. He just works. He likes his job. He's never late. He works. And so I'm like, okay, so this must be pretty serious. So then he comes home first because he works right by where we live, and he gives me he gives me the cash card or debit card, and then he gives me the PIN number, which I did not know the PIN number, but he gives me the PIN number, and then he gives me his brother's, phone number, and he tells me how much is in the account, and then he gives me a can of Fix-A-Flat, just in case I need it, and then he takes our shitty truck and leaves me the keys to the good truck and goes to the hospital. And I'm super worried because, he gave me the debit card, and he's not going to give me that if he doesn't think anything. So I'm like, okay, so I'm sitting on the couch, and this is like, around 9:30 or so p.m. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, oh, I'm worrying because I didn't know what to do because, he's my best friend. He's my everything. I was super worried. And I couldn't go with him to the hospital because our children were in bed and I didn't have anybody to watch them. And then we have two large dogs. One's a pet and actually a guard dog. And because we're really rural, so I have my husband works nights, so I have a guard dog, and that's what he's trained to do, and he's trained very well. And all of a sudden, he starts barking and going nuts, and it's his somebody's here bark. There's something wrong bark. I know the difference between his barks and his mannerisms. And then he got the other dog, our other bark, and then they're running to the laundry room, and I was like, okay, so somebody must be here. It's pretty late. So I go to the laundry room and I hear this hissing noise, this and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I go down in the basement and here a water pipe had burst. And it wasn't it wasn't just a little trickle, it's like a geyser, and it's like spraying everywhere, and I'm like, oh my god. So then I put on some boots because the water's already like this high in the basement because it's just gushing, and I'm fighting through the water because it's like when you see on television, you see the water hoses, they're spraying fires. It's like that. There's so much force, and I'm fighting through the water. It feels like needles when it's hitting me. It was just, like I said, it was a geyser. I mean, and I'm soaked from head to toe, just soaked. And I'm like, okay, so I start turning every water valve I can find, the twisty ones, the lever ones, and there was a couple that I couldn't turn because they were so stuck I couldn't turn them, and that's not doing anything. And we rent, and so, and this is like 10 p.m. and I knew the landlady, I know she goes to bed early, so I was like, oh, she's in bed, so what do? I can't, my husband's in the hospital. I'm like, I can't turn off the water. And so I call the landlady's son because he lives close by, and I tell him, and he's trying to tell me how to shut it off. And he's like, there's a box, I couldn't get this box open. And he's like, well, I'm on my way, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So the water is like this deep now, so I opened up the drain. I found the drain in the floor, and I opened that up, and all the water just sucked down that hole. And so then he came, and he couldn't shut it off either, so he found, I guess on the breaker, the well, because we have a well, then there's a pump, and so he shut the breaker off to the pump, and that stopped the water. But even if we would have found the shutoff, well, he knew where the shutoff valve was, and that's why it wasn't shutting off, is because it was the water that was coming straight from the ground, and I guess it was pumping like 300 gallons a minute. So yeah, it was. Oh, and so the hose had split from the well to the pump. The hose had split, and so he said he called the well company in the morning, and so he just shut it off so we didn't have water. But then my husband's been texting me, and he's telling me they're not, he's fine. They did an EKG, and that came out fine. And so, then after a couple hours, I went to bed because I knew he was fine. And my husband is fine. He did have a stress test yesterday. He failed that stress test, but he failed it because his blood pressure skyrocketed, and they didn't want to proceed with the stress test anymore. So he's going to go, I think, next week for a different type of stress test. And they also adjusted some of his medications because he's a diabetic. We just found out he's a diabetic. So they gave him some different meds for that, and they gave him some different blood pressure meds, and some high cholesterol meds, because his cholesterol was on the edge, and it was just gonna, one more little tiny speck and it would have been high. So they decided it was best to put him on the meds. But so we'll know more next week on why he's having these chest pains and so forth. But he's fine. But anyway, that was the start to my week. And then I've been having hot flashes because I'm in my late 40s, and I guess it's time for that. But so I'm constantly throughout this whole thing worrying about him in the water. I'm like sweating my ass off constantly because I'm so hot. I've never been this hot ever. So if anybody has any remedies for hot flashes, please tell me. Comment down below or send me a private message, because this is awful. And this is what I carry around with me constantly is a fan. Maybe I need one of those battery operated fans. But I have this fan, and I'm like, I've never been so hot in my life. Even when we lived in North Carolina and it was over 100 degrees, I've never sweat this much in my life. And it's like, for those of you that don't know, it's hot flashes. People are think of a hot flash as you're hot and it's over, but it's almost like it's on the inside, and you keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, and it finally comes to the surface, and then it sits there for a while, and you're so hot. I've never been this hot in my life. As a matter of fact, I'm cold. I'm always cold because I'm like this big. So I'm constantly cold. I usually wear like 4 shirts. I wear 2 pairs of socks. I wear, clothes to bed. I'm so, I'm so cold, but now I'm hot. I get these hot flashes, and they're kind of annoying. So anyway, that's been my week. I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on. So thanks for watching. Bye.